Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we've gathered a stack of truly foundational source material.
Yeah, texts spanning thousands of years, different continents.
Exactly. And we're going to use them to uncover a single, really stunning philosophical convergence. We're comparing the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Islamic Quran, and the Hindu Bhagavad Gita.
Three heavy hitters.
Right. And our mission here isn't really to look at the differences, but to find the hidden common ground.
The connecting thread. These documents, they come from dramatically distinct theological frameworks, but they all seem to point toward the same answer for, attaining eternal existence, wisdom, and the ultimate prize, divine power. And premise we're working from is, well, it's powerful and surprisingly uniform across these traditions.
Which is?
That the key to ultimate power is fundamentally internal. It's not about acquiring things, armies, wealth, political control, none of that. It's predicated entirely on the mastery of worldly desire. That spiritual prerequisite is what links the path of the pharaohs to the revelation in Mecca and all the way to the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we have to start the highest possible goal set by any civilization.
The Egyptians.
The Egyptian aspiration to achieve divinity itself. So the Book of the Dead, it's essentially a complex atlas, an instruction manual for the afterlife.
Right. A guide.
Guiding the deceased to navigate, cosmic threats and ultimately achieve a divine eternal existence. The goal is nothing less than attaining a status coeval with the gods.
And that word coeval,
Yeah.
it's important. It means absolute, permanent transcending of mortality. The individual moves beyond the laws of cause and effect that govern everything else.
So you're not just living forever, you're operating on a different plane of existence entirely.
Exactly. And that transition from mortal to divine, it isn't passive. It's an active process of spiritual transformation, and it's fueled by knowledge. Well, the specific texts describe this transformation through a really powerful, almost visceral metaphor. The deceased, often identified with the pharaoh Unas, is said to have eaten the knowledge of God every day.
Eaten it, not just learned it.
Consumed it, internalized it. It's the knowledge that physically and spiritually makes the individual divine, and that's what guarantees their eternal status for all eternity and to everlasting.
And that sovereignty, it sounds complete, almost terrifyingly powerful. If you're divine, what does power even look like? It seems like there's no resistance between what you think and what happens.
That's it, exactly. Once deified, the individual's will is perfectly actualized. Your internal will, your volition, merges with external reality.
Wow. The text captures this perfectly. It declares, what he willeth he doeth, what he hateth not doth he do. There's no frustration, no obstacle, because your personal desires are gone.
They've been transcended. The will aligns perfectly with the cosmic order. The text even says, sovereignty is so complete that the moon cometh to thee, the sun cometh to thee. The soul sits on the throne of Osiris.
Total control over time and space. But this is where the paradox comes in, right?
This is precisely where it gets complicated. While the soul is promised this, celestial sovereignty, the cultural practice dictated that the body must be preserved.
Mummification.
The time-honored custom of mummifying the dead and the continuous prayers for uniting Osiris's bones, it all reinforced the belief that the physical form's reassembly in some form was absolutely essential for eternal life.
And that's the tension. How can the soul be eternally sovereign in heaven if its eternal power is contingent upon, upon mortal bones lying in a tomb?
A tomb thousands of miles away. That's a point of vulnerability. The spiritual outcome relies on a physical mechanism provided by human embalmers.
Right, a contradiction.
And that's exact contradiction.
Yeah.
But that need for physical preservation finds a definitive theological resolution in the Quran.
Okay, so how does that connect?
The source material highlights that the Egyptian necessity for bodily preservation is in strong agreement with the Quran verse telling the journey of after death.
So the Quranic resolution clarifies the mechanics of resurrection. It removes the ambiguity of human effort, like mummification.
Precisely. It affirms the certainty of physical reassembly, but through divine power, not human preservation. Surah Al-Qiyamah addresses that skepticism head-on.
The doubt that a scattered, decomposed body could ever be whole again.
Yes, the text asserts God's absolute limitless power on the Day of Judgment. It basically confirms that human efforts like mummification are, ultimately irrelevant to the divine promise.
And the specificity here is crucial, isn't it? The challenge to skeptics.
It's so specific. It's not about general reassembly. It's about minute detail to demonstrate absolute power over matter.
Do people think We cannot reassemble their bones.
Yes,
We are Cyplos and Terskis capable of restoring their very fingertips.
Their very fingertips. The significance here is massive. By making the physical resurrection a guaranteed outcome of divine power, the uncertainty is just gone.
And that shifts the entire focus.
Completely. It shifts the religious focus away from how the body will be restored, that's God's responsibility, and entirely onto how one merits such an outcome.
So the prerequisite becomes the internal state. Your righteousness, your self-mastery, the condition of the soul.
Because the body's restoration is a given.
So the theological certainty is settled. The body will return whole, which means the real question shifts entirely to the state of the soul before death. And this is exactly what Arjuna faces on the battlefield in the Bhagavad Gita. We're transitioning now from the principles, the Egyptian goal, the Quranic power, to the practical human test case.
The application.
Right. Arjuna's story, just before the great battle, it encapsulates this precise choice between worldly power and spiritual wisdom.
It does. He was offered a material advantage that would guarantee victory.
Lord Krishna's immense, powerful army, military might, pure external power.
And his choice is the pivotal moment. It defines the entire philosophical text. He rejected that guaranteed military win.
He just said no.
Said no. Instead, he chose Krishna's spiritual guidance, opting to have him only as a good, faithful counselor. Now, this required a radical act of internal discipline.
He had to have, what does the text say, fortified and giving up his desire to having the army.
Exactly.
But doesn't that sound like a massive risk? I mean, for anyone who is action-oriented, this decision seems so counterintuitive. Why reject a guaranteed victory? How is giving up power the same as gaining something greater?
And that's the brilliance of the Gita. Arjuna's opponents, when they faced the exact same offer, they chose the army.
Of course they did.
They were seduced by the power, the lust, believing that military strength, external control, was the sole determinant of success. They acted out of desire.
But Arjuna didn't.
Arjuna understood that winning the battle while losing his spiritual integrity. That was the true failure. He chose internal clarity over external might.
So by fortifying himself against the desire for the physical outcome,
the victory achieved through slaughter and dominance, yes. By doing that, he gained the acceptance of the Lord Krishna and, critically, the profound wisdom of the life.
His true victory was secured by giving up the desire for worldly control.
He proved his capacity for internal mastery, which made him a fitting recipient of divine counsel.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If we synthesize these three distinct traditions, we find a single, coherent philosophical argument emerging. The mastery of internal desire is it's inextricably linked to the capacity to wield divine power.
The central concept linking all of them is fortifying desire. It's the essential prerequisite for handling immense power without destroying yourself or the world around you.
And it mandates control over the impulse to use that power for personal gain.
Which is why the texts so often connect divine power with inaction.
Okay, inaction seems deeply contradictory to sovereignty. If I'm the deified Egyptian and I can command the sun and the moon, why would I want inaction? Can you clarify that distinction for us?
Certainly. We have to distinguish between two forms of control. First, you have what you could call worldly control.
Okay.
This is reactive. It's externally focused. It is initiated from the desire of action or response or causes. It's the power of the opponent who chooses the army. They see a problem, the battle, and they apply maximum force.
Right. Brute force to get a desired outcome.
It's exhausting. And it's inherently unstable because it depends on external variables you can't ultimately control.
And the second type?
The second is divine power. This is not an act of doing, it's a state of being.
A state of being.
It is characterized by the capacity for immense power while not using it. Its potentiality held in reserve. It's only accessible when the self is detached from that worldly cause and effect.
Like a perfectly tuned engine.
That's a great analogy. It's running smoothly, but it's waiting for the highest command, not responding to every little jitter or impulse from the ego.
That makes it so much clearer. So when the Egyptian sovereign declares what he willeth, he doeth, it's not about demanding things like a child wants candy.
No, not at all.
It's achieved through that internal purity, that desirelessness, exemplified by Arjuna's inaction and fortifying the desire.
The individual's will aligns perfectly with the cosmic order because the personal reactive ego has been transcended.
So you gain absolute power by demonstrating you have no desire for partial personal power.
That's the entire lesson. If the deified Egyptian truly possesses divine knowledge, their will must mirror the divine will. And the divine will is, by definition, devoid of selfish desire. Therefore, their will is immediately manifested.
So what does this all mean when we put it all together?
I think the combined takeaway from the Book of the Dead, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita is that ultimate power is not something external to be seized.
It's not something you grab.
It's an internal state to be entered into through rigorous self-mastery.
The internal mastery is, well, you used a really great analogy before we started. The ship's rudder.
Right. It's like setting a ship's rudder straight before a storm. The power of the wind, the cosmic forces, divine energy, whatever you want to call it, it can propel that vessel with immense force.
But only if.
But only if the captain, the inner self, has relinquished the desire to constantly micromanage the rudder for immediate gratification. You set the course, and then you trust it. The boat moves according to its highest purpose, because the captain first achieved internal stillness.
That is a powerful analogy for life. So if divine power is defined by inaction and this fortifying of desire, we have to ask ourselves, and you listening, if you're an action-oriented person, what specific ways in your own life might you be holding yourself back from true influence by clinging too tightly to the desire for immediate control? The pursuit of power often demands intense reactive effort, but perhaps ultimate influence requires intentional internal stillness, a bit of patience, something to think about as you navigate your week.